David, we've just come to another spot. We were going to. I hit you up this morning with a. Thought we'd chat about something else that wasn't necessarily about grass and cows. And the reason why I thought of it was when you rang this morning and said, "Oh, I had my social thing wrong. We're not doing lunch. We're doing dinner.
Yeah.
Going out for dinner, not lunch." And because when you said yesterday you were going to lunch on a Saturday, I thought, oh, that's something that I don't know many people do anymore. You know, like I know Mum and Dad used to do a lot of that years ago.
Yeah.
You know, like they, a Saturday or a Sunday.
Have a few people over.
Dinner party or a lunch party. And I thought
that stopped?
Well, somewhere along the way.
The last 2 years it stopped.
It did. That's right. There's that one. But I mean, I think, and it just got me thinking about, well, how is the social, because that used to be a big thing as a kid. We'd go to lunches and dinners.
You're a very social family, though.
My mum always had dinner parties and lunch parties, and there was the tennis parties, and there was all that sort of very social.
Yeah. And there were tennis courts all over the bush, weren't there?
Everyone had a tennis court, and there was even a few community ones around here and there.
Community ones all over the place.
Yeah, it was just, I guess the tennis was the excuse to have the party or the.
Well, Max Corcoran told me when he was a young bloke, he used to ride a horse from the property at Burrawa over to halfway to Young to have a game of tennis with Peter Cusack.
There you go. And Tom Kelly's father, JW, he used to ride a horse from Suffolk Vale to Narrowa. Narrowa Hall there. For like parties.
Right.
For a party, like a nighttime party. Yeah. So it got me thinking about how the social fabric or habits or rituals or the culture's changed over many years.
Well, there's a great book by a fellow called Wendell Berry. He's a bit of a philosopher farmer in America called The Unsettling of America, and it's rather a similar story here. You know, when I first came here in '71, Harry O'Hare used to drive a coach up the road for the school kids, and there were 53 kids on it, and now there's a little 6-seater and there's about 3 kids on it. So I mean that's going on everywhere. Mechanisation, I guess, is something to do with that. But, you know, in the time I've been farming, there have been several times when it was, looking back, it's incredible to think that we actually survived it. You know, that when I first arrived here, I remember the first mob of sheep I sold, they were big 2-year-old wethers, big and fat, you could nearly ride them to town. And Jack Donahue came out from Burrawa, who's a local butcher, and he was nearly weeping as he offered me $2.50 for them.
Each.
and so, you know, there wasn't a lot of money around, and there were wheat quotas on because we'd had a period in the late 60s where there was too much wheat, so there were quotas, and then the wool game was absolutely in the doldrums. You know, you had to get 34 cents. I don't know whether it was a kilogram or a pound. It was 71, so it was probably a kilogram. And if you didn't get that mystical figure of 34 cents, the government would top you up. And so, you know, it was very difficult times on farms. So that was the beginning of not much employment on farms.
And what other sort of, I guess, you know, as a farmer, the social side of it. I mean, we just talked about, you know, tennis. Not as much going on. I guess not to say it's less, it's just different, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we have. I think as you get older, you might do less of it. But you know, we have friends coming up from Sydney and things, but we haven't been doing that for a while because of the COVID. Yeah, I don't know, Charlie. I'm sure the young people. Do you consider yourself young, or
a young at heart?
There's a young generation below you now. What are they doing?
They go to the pub. They're going out and about. I don't know. Yeah, maybe the pub. Yeah, like I don't go to the pub much at all anymore. No. It might be a couple of times a year. I mean, if there's something on, you know, I've got a few people and we've been feeding them for a few nights, where we might go to the pub.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Yeah, not as much. Yeah, I guess it might be as much about just maturity, if that's the right word, or just getting older. It doesn't always mean the same thing. And just your habits are change. You know, I mean, especially when kids come along, you sort of.
Well, you do
You're not as
things
fancy.
around them, don't you?
Yeah.
That takes up a lot of your social life.
And the friends, you know,
And the friends you
with
make
similar,
are often
similar.
people that, you know, they've got kids the same age as yours.
That's right, because that's often the common, the common.
But, you know, I
thread.
remember as a kid, you know, my parents were doctors and my mother wasn't working as a doctor and she had 5 kids, but my father was working hard as a doctor. And they did have people for dinner once in a while, but not often. You know, it wasn't they weren't kicking their heels up. They were too exhausted, I think.
Yeah, I think, and that might be a bit of that nowadays too, I think. And I guess, you know, a lot of the entertainment or the social stuff is brought to you by a screen.
Indeed, indeed.
Netflix
Yeah.
at home, that'll do.
Yeah.
That the sort of different reasons for people to be together, or lots of reasons not even to bother to be together.
I think one of the things that come out of the last 2 years with COVID-19 is that everyone suddenly realised how much we appreciate being near other people. Because, you know, I mean, what do we do with the most, the worst recalcitrants in society? We take them away from people and put them in a place where there aren't people in close proximity. So that's the ultimate punishment for being a naughty person. But to be forced not to be near each other, we've suddenly realised that's important to us.
And there's lots of consequences of that too, isn't that there? That you know that I think have played out in various different ways that aren't always positive. You know, just not being near family. I know I didn't see my mum and dad for 4 months, I think, and I used to see them every few weeks.
Yeah.
Lots of people in you know worse situations, especially overseas, I guess too.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, indeed. Well, you know, I've got a son who lives in America, and he's hoping to come out for a school reunion in March, but it'll only be him, and he'll only be here for a short while.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, having said that, we've had the blessing of the technology that allows us to talk to our grandchildren on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever it is.
That's true.
But doesn't take the place of actually having a relationship where you can give them a hug and stuff like that.
Totally, and that's really important. Zach Bush, you know, he says, Dr. Zach Bush, if you don't know him, look him up. He's fantastic. He said, you know, you really to remain healthy. One of the most beneficial health regimes is to hug people.
Yeah.
You know, like give them hugs. You know, different people. You know, 7, 10, 12 times a day.
It's a natural
thing
that we have within us, I believe.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Any other reflections on culture, society, social from the Burrawa region?
I've got a couple of books I'd like to mention.
Totally.
Probably a lot of people have read Matthew Evans's book called Soil. He's the guy who, I think he's styled as the gourmet farmer, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Fat Pig Farm down there in Tassie.
Yeah, that's it. And you've probably been down and had him on.
I have interviewed him for for 20 minutes at the Regionality Conference up in Queensland some months ago, and I was going to be there in Tassie in November, but that's all been
That's
cancelled.
not happening. Yeah. But anyway, it's one of our blokes in our grazing group. We occasionally share book titles with each other, and this bloke is a bloke who probably reads a fair bit, but I wouldn't have said he was an insane reader, and he put it up on our little WhatsApp group that we have where we share information, and he said, "This is without question the best book I've ever read." So we all went out and bought it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've read a lot of books about soil, and it was very well put, I have to say. It was a really good, he did it very well.
But the book Soil, Matt Evans's book, absolutely go and get yourself a copy. Unfortunately, it came out just when there was lockdowns and restrictions and everything, so he wasn't able to do his full circuit of book launches and promotions. I know he's going to go to the Byron Bay Writers Festival and I think Canberra as well. It got called off, and we were going to try and catch up around there. So not good that was a bit of a thing. But I think
it gave people lots of time
to read.
Yeah,
as long as they knew about it, then that was fine. It was hopefully made up for itself. So there you go, Matthew. Plug from none other than David Marsh. No, that's an
it-
accolade.
It was a great book. I mean, there's some really good books that people have written. You know, Nicole Masters' book is very good,
Totally.
very technical.
Yep.
But it put Matthew's book put everything you needed to know in a very readable and
Yeah.
accessible way for people that might have known very little about what goes on in soils.